Hello and welcome to another episode of Industry Celebrities and TAAEF Room to Grow podcast series. I'm ThatKimberly, also known as Kimberly Scott, and this is my guest today, Mr. John Ridgway. How you doing, John?
Doing fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming here at this beautiful HA office that let me take over their conference room and make it my podcast room. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your story with us. Tell folks a little bit about you, where you're from,
Grew up in Kansas and got into this industry in the early 1980s in the Dallas area.
Wow.
And have lived in Florida, Georgia, back to the Dallas area, and then we've been in Houston area for about 21 years now.
Okay. Wow. So you started 21 years ago?
No, I started in Houston 21 years ago. I started in this industry in the early 80s.
Okay, early 80s. Okay, just wanted to be clear. How did you start? How did you happen upon the multifamily industry?
Well, I used to be in the hotel industry and in the Dallas area, and was in between jobs. And a friend of mine started a janitorial company. And so I was selling janitorial services to office buildings, wasn't very good at it, and went into the management office of the apartments that I was living in at the time in North Dallas.
That's
and
awesome.
Wound up getting them as a client to clean apartments and carpet clean. And so started in as a supplier partner, as we like to say. It's not what we called it back in the day.
I know.
We have evolved.
And I appreciate you.
Yeah. And so started that, did that for a couple of years, and then was hired as a leasing consultant by one of my customers.
Okay.
And so started out as a leasing agent at a property over I-30 in Ferguson area in Dallas. That probably would have been about 1984. So it's east of downtown.
Okay.
On I-30.
Oh, so going out towards Rockwall, Ferguson?
Yes, correct.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So yeah, wow, that whole area is so changed and evolved going out towards Rockwall.
I have not been out there.
You would be amazed.
In years, and next time I get to
just go take the cruise.
Dallas, I will do that and
highly
go
recommend.
by and take a look at it. I was paid the awesome sum of about $800 a month. But I got a free apartment.
Yeah.
That was all bills paid.
Wow, back in the day. They don't do that like that anymore,
They don't
folks.
do that like that anymore. But we were living large.
Wow, that's amazing. So so you started there, and then where after that? Like, what was the next step after that?
So one of the interesting things about this business and the evolution of it, that was an independent owner out of California that was doing a rehab on the property. I then went to work for Johnstown.
Okay.
Big company back in the 80s. And I remember distinctly walking into the interview of this property, and there's this blue haze of smoke through the office. And the manager smoked Camels, because you could still smoke in the office back then. And so I walk through the blue haze in for my interview. And great lady. Learned a lot from her, and she was hiring a leasing agent and assistant manager.
Okay.
So it was a two-person property.
And that was big, right?
It was.
Back in the day?
It was like 180 units. And God love her. So she's sitting there in the interview with her Camel, and she's one of these, like,
like you see on television.
Okay, here's the deal. You do all the leasing, you collect all the rent, you do everything except I'll turn the units. You do everything else.
Wow.
And I'm like, cool, I'm in.
Yeah.
And went to work for her, went to work for Johnstown, and learned a lot about the basics of the business.
Yeah.
And it's the sales end on the leasing, the collections, all of those things, learned it by doing it.
Yeah.
And then.
So did you have a college degree? Was this right out of high school?
I did not. Well, it was a few years out of high school because I had done the hotel business for a while. And
But still, that's awesome that you to have the on-the-job training that you have received over the years, I'm sure. Yeah, I think that's amazing. So like that from there, and then like tell me your next positions that you moved up to where you are today.
Right. So in this business, and that's one of the great opportunities that you have is that I have have had is like you said, I don't have a college degree.
Mm-hmm.
I learned on the job, and that was rewarded.
Yeah.
And there is a path to success without that degree.
Yes, I have a degree, and it is still sealed. Nobody's ever asked to see my transcripts. Just so you know. I like to tell
Just
everybody
so
that. Just so you know. Okay, go ahead. Back to you.
And so, yeah, and so had moved up from the assistant leasing
Mm-hmm.
position to an on-site manager position, and had various sizes of various properties in disarray.
Yeah.
Had the opportunity to step into, kind of fix
Mm-hmm.
problem
Yeah, it
properties.
happens.
It does. And, late 80, probably about 87 or 88, I got my first district manager
Okay.
position, and that's what took me to Florida.
Wow.
I was working, a friend of mine who we worked at Johnstown together had gone over to this other company, and they needed a district manager. They were expanding, needed it for Florida. So I got my first
moved up?
multi-site management position, and moved to Florida, then got moved to Atlanta in the Atlanta market, another position that then took me back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
That's where I met you.
In the early 90s,
Yeah.
and did several district manager positions. And then in about 1996 was hired by Lincoln Property Company with the understanding, as a regional property manager, with the understanding that we would be amenable to moving.
Okay.
And so
to Houston?
That's
No.
unstated.
Oh,
unstated.
Okay. Just be ready to go.
Just be ready to go.
Got it.
And my deal with them was, I said, our oldest son, who graduated from high school in 1998, I said, we're staying here to get him through school. And so he graduated in May of 1998. And in June of 1998, Lincoln came up with the opportunity that brought me to the Houston area.
Okay, got it.
As I told you, we moved from the Atlanta area to Dallas, and we loved Atlanta. A lot of trees, a lot of hills.
Yeah.
And so
Hotlanta, shout out. Yes.
Absolutely. And so when my wife had the opportunity to come to an area like the Woodlands, which is where we live, that has a lot of those trees that you don't see in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Yeah, she was all about that.
So you made your way back here, and obviously moved your way up in the ranks. What was your highest position at a management company level, and then to where you are? Because now you own your own company, correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So I achieved the position of regional vice president.
Okay.
I was with 3 companies over probably a 10-year period where I held that position.
More on the job training.
It was.
Because every level, I feel every position you have, you are learning something new. It's not like all rolled up into one.
Absolutely. And, briefly, in about 2004, I realized that that in order to achieve my financial goals, my personal financial goals, that being on the ownership end of our business was really the place to be.
Yeah.
And I loved the companies that I worked for. They are fantastic people.
Yeah.
Still friends with a lot of them today through the association. But I realized that I needed to break out on my own. And it wasn't just start my own management company. It was really about the property ownership side. And so I do have a property management company that does manage assets that I do have an ownership interest in.
Your evolution is like really your college degree is what I look at it, because I always like to say I went to college to make my mom happy and proud, but nobody's ever asked to see my transcripts. But I learned how to run and start a business by doing it, 15 so years ago. I didn't know everything. College taught me very little. I learned everything on, Google or by error. And even back then there was Google, but nobody was really, you know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
just,
and I'll tell you, if you have not had John Boriak on your show,
you need to have on. Okay, got it. Well, all are welcome. And we will be reaching out to you because you've just been shouted out, John.
Yes. And make sure that you ask him about the college part of it,
Okay.
because
Nope.
that's a major part of his story by not going to college
Okay.
and getting into real estate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the many reasons that we're doing the Room to Grow podcast series, because we want people out there in the world to understand and take multifamily as the first, career step, either right after high school because they don't want to go to college, or after college. Either one, it doesn't matter. You're still going to learn. There's still so much opportunity. I mean, hearing your story and many others, it's amazing. Like, there's so much opportunity. Would you not agree? Like,
I do agree. And I think it's a great industry in that there is opportunities for everybody.
yeah,
And
both sides.
and I'm with you. I'm not knocking the college degrees.
Hmm.
We have a lot of people in our industry that have them. I can tell you that they're not all business related.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
my boss at Lincoln had a history
Yeah.
degree, and which to me was an absolute plus because I
Hmm.
loved traveling with him. Like we would go
Was that
to,
Brad
it
Williams?
is,
Oh my
it's Brad.
gosh. Yes, because
And
he's the historian. Yes, I do love that. But he started as a porter.
he did. He did. He started as a porter, got
Yeah.
his history degree, and then and has risen up
Hmm.
to the ranks to I
Yeah.
believe senior vice president.
I
With,
don't know.
yeah,
I like to
it's
give him a hard
Brad.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
Brad. You
Brad.
gotta
Everybody knows. Everybody knows
love him.
as
Shout
Brad.
out to Brad. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, one time with him, I truly remember as we were standing in front of the Alamo after an association dinner, and he's laying out the scene
Oh yeah.
of
I've been on one of those
yeah,
tours, so he can just tell you.
this is what it looked like
It's
back in
amazing.
1836,
Yeah.
and this is when the raid happened, and it's a wow, just an incredible story. He's an incredible storyteller.
I so just side
Mhm.
note, I ran into by accident 2 different times, and Jenny and Brad thought I was stalking them, and I wasn't. The same flight to go to DC, like, it was either, like, several days before the Capitol Walk or whatever they call it
Mhm.
now, and I was like, "I promise, guys, I'm not stalking you. I'm coming to visit friends and then, go to the Capitol," and they were like that they go to Gettysburg, they do other
Yes.
things before then, because he loves, and Jenny
Mhm.
started telling me about how much he loved history, and then he told me a story. So yes, love
Yeah.
it. I love his stories about
Yeah.
history. So
Yeah.
shout out to Brad again, and he will have to come on and tell us, both him and John.
I should get a discount now because I've got you, John Boriak, and I've gotten you.
You hear that, Becca? He wants a discount. But honestly, if you would like to volunteer your time to be a host, we are looking for hosts that want to, because we can't do this, all the time. We're going to try and keep this up as much as humanly possible. So we will definitely, talk to you about possibly becoming a host on the side. So
Right.
anyways, so what do you love the most about multifamily? Since you've already told us, you highly recommend it. There's so much room to grow in our industry. Basically, from your story, what is the thing you love the most about multifamily?
Well, from a job or a management perspective, again, it is a skill set that you can achieve and acquire through experience
Mhm.
and coming up through the ranks. From an income perspective, our industry pays very well,
Yeah.
whether you have that college degree or not.
So on this podcast, we like to ask
Mhm.
folks, what's the best advice that you've ever received from somebody in or out of the industry that really was a light bulb aha moment for you, that you learned a lot from, or you still remember to this day?
Yeah, I would say that the one phrase that really sticks in my mind is never lose money. And it's always important. And and we
I
laugh
get it.
about that, but
No, I get it.
it's important. We must remember that, whatever position you're in this industry,
Hmm.
your client, your owner, me, our goal is to make money.
Hmm.
And the people are an integral part of that process.
Hmm.
I think one thing that we need to have a lot more focus on is educating everybody
Hmm.
on what the business plan is.
Yeah.
What is it that that what does the owner expect out of
Yeah.
this property?
Hmm.
I have
So they understand how to get to that
Mhm.
bottom line, whether it's an EBITDA or an NOI or whatever it is, that everybody
and
understands.
what everybody's role
Hmm.
is in it.
Yeah.
Whether it's the leasing agents, whether it's the assistant manager collecting the rent,
Hmm.
whether it's the number of days vacant
Mhm.
I took over management of a property earlier this year where there were a lot of units that had been vacant 200,
Wow.
300
Ouch.
days. Ouch. Yeah. And it
That's
was,
losing some money.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, and Fred Cheney at Lincoln. Yeah. And so, understanding what your role
Mhm.
in the operations are and what the expectations are. And again, that's part of that education process where you can take a $14 an hour leasing person
Mhm.
who's just starting out, and when they understand, oh, this is why it's important to maintain high occupancy. This is
Mhm.
why it's important to lease that unit that's
'Cause
been
yeah.
vacant for six,
Yeah,
for
because they get a
60 days.
commission and
Correct. Yeah.
everybody wins. It's a
Hmm.
win-win situation
Yes.
across the board.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So,
awesome.
so my favorite Fred story is, and if you know Fred, he's from West
I've
Texas,
only met him once.
and
That's all it took.
so
Scott Wilder might not have liked it, but
yeah,
go ahead.
so Fred would occasionally call
Mhm.
in that West Texas accent, and I would,
I'm
pick
from
up.
El Paso, Texas. I
Yeah,
know it.
I would, you'd pick up the phone, and all Fred would say was, "John, my boy, were you aware?" And I'm like, and whatever followed that, it's like, of course not, Fred, because I would have fixed it to avoid this call.
So that was the key. That was the
That
key
was the
phrase.
key. Were
Were you
you aware?
aware?
Yeah,
Well,
this,
my funny story about Fred Cheney was I met Ann Sadowski, was the
mhm,
first person, one of the very first people that I ever saw speak in the association, went up to her and asked her to take her to lunch. Told her what I was doing. It was back then it was a TV show before Google purchased YouTube to even have,
mhm,
the big wide
mhm.
world of YouTube. And introduced me, loved what I was doing, loved my excitement, and got me a lunch with Fred Cheney. And Fred Cheney said, okay, sure. And made Scott Wilder, shout out Scott Wilder,
Yeah.
take a meeting with me because he gave his word. And
Yep.
so Scott met with me, and Scott told me no 100 times until he finally told me yes when y'all had a new development that they could afford because it was a TV show back then,
Mhm.
And Scott always like say that he's the reason, that
Yep.
we like
Yep.
he was one of our first clients, and yeah, so never really got to speak to him again. I know he's retired, but yes, I do remember his voice. I never heard that saying, but I think that's awesome. But yeah, people and situations like that you learn from people, whether it's an advice that was given to you, that something that always sticks with you. And so I appreciate you
Yeah.
sharing that with us for sure. That's awesome. So tell folks how they can connect with you or get a hold of you if they have questions and what you're
Well,
doing.
as I'm old, so I'm old school. Don't have a website.
Okay.
I do have
An email.
I do have email. Yes.
And it's not AOL. That's all that matters.
Yes. Yes. I
Good
have.
job.
I do have my own domain name, even though
Yes,
there is no
that's okay.
website associated with that. But it's JWR at CRATX.net.
We'll put it in the show notes. And are you on the LinkedIn, as my boyfriend likes to say, or the Facebook? Which
I
one you
am
got?
on the Facebook. I am actually, technically, I have a LinkedIn page
You should get
because
more active.
I should get more
I'll help
active.
you with that. You just
It
need to
was,
put it out there.
we had dinner with a couple last night down in Galveston, and their daughter, who is a recent college graduate, she mentioned that she was a social media
Mm-hmm.
person.
Uh-huh.
And so I thought that when she said that, I was like, I should probably get her to do.
So yes, get your friend to get you hooked up because you need to be on LinkedIn.
I will at least try to get into the 2000s.
Okay. You hear that, folks? Well, thank you again, John. I really appreciate your time. And if anything John has said has sparked anything in you, or somebody that needs a new career, please tag them in the comments or share this episode with them because we want them to come and join us in the multifamily industry. And until next week, remember, folks, sharing is caring, and there's so much room to grow in multifamily. Thanks, John.
Thanks for having me.